everybody, to our next episode of Wrestling with Our Faith. I am Chris, and here's Josh. How you doing today, Josh?
Doing okay. A little tired, but good. Always.
Good. It's been a while since we've been on. It's been almost 2 weeks now.
Yeah.
It's been a couple crazy weeks. A lot of stuff going on personally between me and you, and some scheduling issues and all of that with the building that we use to record. So glad to be back. I'm excited. Been waiting for this podcast for a while now. We got a little bit of a different setup this week, so hopefully you guys can see more of the front of me instead of the side of my face through most of the podcast. So I want to let everyone know about our little thing we got going on here to win a $50 Amazon gift card. And we've had 2 people who have signed or who are eligible, and all you have to do to be eligible is go to our YouTube page at Wrestling with Our Faith and give us a like, give us a subscribe, and make a comment, because we want to hear from you guys on what you think, any questions you may have, anything like that. So it's kind of an encouragement for you guys to go and do that. So I just encourage you guys to go do that. We'll say we have 2 people who are eligible right now, and we definitely want to have more of you guys, hear from more of you guys. So make sure you go on and leave a comment and give us a like and a subscribe. And since our last time that we talked to you guys, we've had 10 new subscribers, but only 2 commenters. So we have some people subscribing, just not commenting. And we have some people from out of the country too. I saw some of the analytics that we have some people from the Philippines that have listened.
Ooh.
So, and I know we have one person from Germany who's listened. So yeah, it's getting a little international now. So even if you guys are international, we can still get that gift card to you.
Just a little bit. A little international.
Yeah. So we can get that gift card to you. That's not a problem if that's what you're worried about in commenting. So yeah, we just want to hear from you guys. So we encourage you to go do that. So this week we are going to have the potential monumental discussion, as it can be in some circles, about the evolution versus creation, and it can be a hot button topic, especially for somebody who is very passionate on either side of this argument. And I don't want to say argument, I should say discussion, but it can turn into an argument quite often. And we don't want to be. That's not where we want to go with it today, and being any type of argument or
Ken Ham, Bill Nye.
Exactly. Yes. Oh, that debate just grinded my gears, because I thought Ken Ham did a terrible job in his argument. And Bill Nye did what he did. I'm not on the evolution side, so I can't critique too much how he did in his side or not, but I thought Ken Ham just did a terrible job and missed so many opportunities. And we can get a little bit more into that next week, because that's more of a
well, at least have to say something. He did try his best, I think, to defend himself.
He did.
He did a lot of defensive work. And right.
And my critique on it is more of what we're going to be talking next week. And I think he's stuck and pigeon-toed himself into one specific, he takes a literal 6-day approach. And I think because of that, he has backed himself into a corner in certain arguments where he didn't need to. But that's more of what we're talking about next week, is a literal versus non-literal 6-day creation. So we can get more into those specifics next week and iron out some of those. But this week we want to talk more about just evolution or creation. And when we talk about creation, there are several different theories of creation. There's the young earth creationist, which is what Ken Ham is, which is a literal 6-day creation. And then we have people who are a non-literal 6-day creation, who believe that obviously God created the heaven and the earth. Then there's also intelligent design theorists, which are people who believe that they don't necessarily believe that it was God who created everything, but they believe something. There was some type of intelligent something out there who created it. And then there's also the evolution creationist, who believe evolution, basically everything that, for the most part, that evolutionists believe, but they believe that there is some type of intelligent being that sparked it. That it wasn't just random. So, so I guess I want to start out by just talking about what is evolution. And from, I read this book, and it was a phenomenal book by Ernest Brennan. It was called Darwin's Resolution, Evolution or Creation. And it was a phenomenal book. The author, he didn't take a side, he stayed neutral throughout the book, but he kind of laid out the biological truths that science knows, and then laid out the case for evolution and for creation and what they believe, and then just kind of let the chips fall where they may, and let the reader make their decision based on that, the facts and what each side believes. So it was just a phenomenal book. I mean, I'm only maybe almost halfway through, and I wish I could have finished it, but it's a really dense read, so it was hard to just get through it all in the short period of time that I had. But it was so good because it laid everything out there so crystal clear, and then just laid the case on why each side believes what they believe based on those facts.
All right.
So with evolution, he kind of gives a general idea of evolution and what evolution is. And evolution started out from a theory by Darwin saying that all living things came from one source of life. It started off as one and then branched out from there into what we have in our living kingdom today: plants, animals, humans, all of that, which was his perspective for evolution. And then there's been some things that have been attached to evolution that, if that was the case, then we have the Big Bang Theory, which we'll talk about in a little bit. On that's what happened before evolution started. That's how the universe got created. Then life came to be, and then from that moment, we had this constant changing of things and splitting off into different types of living beings. So what are your initial thoughts on evolution there, Josh?
Well, I grew up with Ken Ham, fundamentalist. I still use a lot of the arguments that he brought out in case anyone is trying to say, well, this is the truth, this is fact. And I'm like, how does that make sense?
Right.
For me, I feel like evolution doesn't make sense unless you have the Big Bang Theory attached to it. And I have a hard time with the Big Bang Theory, because if you want someone to believe it, then you should probably stop calling it a theory.
Right.
So yeah, for the most part, I think that it's as far as believing in a creation, one or the other, you need faith. You need faith in both of them.
Right. And that was something that this author brought up in his book, is that neither evolution theory with the Big Bang or creation, neither can be proven to be true scientifically by what we would say, what science would say is an absolute truth. Science hasn't proven or disproven one way or the other, either of those.
Right.
So, as you again said, if you believe one or the other, it is a matter of faith. If you believe in evolution and the Big Bang, you're taking a step of faith on that, because you can't prove that. And I don't know if there is a way to prove some of that, because you can't go back and observe it or recreate that process.
Right.
So it's always going to be a theory.
Right.
And if it's just a theory, then you have to take that step of faith out onto that.
Right.
And I mean, we'll just, since you mentioned the Big Bang Theory, that was an interesting topic to read through. And I mean, what's your general opinion on the Big Bang Theory?
I don't know if there's any new information on matter, but from a basic biology, like scientific standpoint in middle school, matter cannot be created nor destroyed.
Mhm.
So all the matter that is in existence has been there since the beginning of time. All the energy that you have is there. It will form. It somehow had to start from nothing, which is the argument. So if something started from nothing, this doesn't make sense.
Right. And if people don't know what the Big Bang Theory is, it's the theory that in at the very beginning there was basically nothing, and then there was some catalyst that sprung the universe forward, expanding scenario, which it continues to expand, as science says now, and um, just as it's expanding, different types of elements are being created, planets are becoming to be formed, stars are being formed, and all that type of stuff. So, let's say the argument is that it came from nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And
so with that, I feel like you could make that argument only with one thing, and that is with some kind of intelligent design.
Right.
Like something out there had to have started this process. Like it couldn't have just been. I don't even think from the natural laws that we have, it's not possible.
Right. From an evolutionist perspective, I don't see how it could happen. Like, how do you say and rationalize that there was nothing, and then all of a sudden, boom, it's all there and starts happening?
Yeah.
Now, from a creationist perspective, whether it's intelligent design or a god, now you can say that there is an intelligent being who sprung that, who had the ability to take nothing and make something and spring it forth and happening. Which makes, to me, that makes a whole lot more sense.
Yeah.
Even if you're looking from a biblical perspective, when it says, in Genesis, God created the heavens and the earth. We don't know exactly how he did that. Is it possible that there was nothing, he spoke it, and then bam, we had this explosion, and out of that came what science would say is a Big Bang theory?
Yeah. So interesting part about Genesis, when it talks about there being like a void or an emptiness, it's translated to welter and waste. So it wasn't like, as far as Genesis goes, from the Jewish perspective, it's not like there was nothing. It's Genesis actually falls under a specific category of creation stories, which is chaos to order. You have a bunch of other ones where supreme beings send animals down to create land, or there are various others, but the most predominantly mentioned one is chaos to order. In even those thoughts, there was always something.
Right. And like, we've talked before, and we'll probably get into a bit more next week, that the creation account is more poetic than historical. And so we can't take it as a historical, as in things happen exactly like this. There's some poetry involved. Let's say it's written in poetry, so there are poetic elements to how that is. And like I say, we can talk more about that next week. But there was a creation of some sort, how God created everything. We don't know exactly, but we know that there was creation, because obviously the universe and the world doesn't predate God. So there has to be some type of, and how that happened, we don't know. Genesis doesn't tell us how it happened. It just says that it happened. And it gives a poetic description of how that is. And there's a whole big, long thing that you can get into. We can probably say that for next week. But so there is something that happened. And so we know, like, could the Big Bang have been a way that God created the universe?
I mean, if you believe in an all-powerful God, then any solution that you can come up with is possible.
Right.
And so, and that's the thing when we talk about different forms of creation, or even trying to talk about how science applies to God. if you believe in an all-powerful being, that means everything is possible. That's it.
Right.
So yes, I mean, uh, from a standpoint of saying, looking at it objectively, because I would, I'm choosing for myself to stand more on a young Earth creation. It's kind of how I was raised, and I
Right.
feel like for me that makes the most sense. It's made the most sense this whole entire time. But I acknowledge that if we believe in an all-powerful God, then any way, shape, or form that you want to take in biblically, or if you want to add some Scientology into that, if you think that there's a supreme being, he's all powerful, then yeah, he created it any way that you want.
Right. And for me, I struggle with that, like from a biblical creation and being a young Earth or an old Earth, taking a standpoint. I'm more of a really doesn't matter to me. I believe that God did it, and how He did it is irrelevant.
Right.
So to me, that's what it is. From a for my personal, like if I had to choose one way or the other, I guess I would choose more the opposite of what you and I would lean more towards an older Earth, only because of I believe that science still will it reveals God, obviously, and there are some scientific things that if we're looking at science is thinking that this is how the world came into being. Do I believe it just happened rapid or randomly? No. I would believe that obviously God's the one that said, let there, I'm going to create the heavens and the earth, and that's how He did it. Only because I just have to, in my mind, I have to rationalize science and the Bible and how they fit together. So I don't think you can, because I think when you try to separate the two, because God obviously created science, so science should always be pointing back to God at some point.
God always created science, but science didn't create God.
True. Yes.
To say that they have to coincide together doesn't make sense. If we're taking the stance that He's an all-powerful God, that means the realm of our thought, how we think things happen, don't apply to the God that we worship. So I think all nature does point to God.
Right. And that's what I'm saying. If you're just saying like you have to choose,
right?
Like that's the more the side I'm leaning on, because in my mind I think the science will help point us to God and how things were done, instead of being in contrast to that. So that's why I would lean more that way than the young Earth. Not saying that God couldn't have done, obviously God could have done, a literal 6-day, and it can be a young Earth, and I'm perfectly fine in believing that as well. That's just how I leave if I had to choose between the two.
That's fair.
So there's that. Yeah. So now, I mean, I'm going to transition more to into more of the evolution part of this, and from the Darwin's perspective, that Darwin said that basically every living being came from one single cell organism, and so what he's saying is so the Earth, there was no life. Big Bang happened, Earth formed. It was just a desolate place, and eventually there was what scientists call a primordial sludge that formed, and which happened to hold the right potential combinations of microscopic types of proteins and I don't even think with proteins, and then I'm not a super science person, so I'm just trying to remember this from what I read, and basically that there is some type of power surge, whether it be from electricity or something that happened in the Earth from heat or whatever, which created the right environment for no life to turn into life.
Frankenstein?
Pretty much, yes. And so that then created the first living cell.
Mm-hmm.
And then from that, there was through millions of years, billions of years, things just evolved and kept changing and eventually splitting off and getting new life forms until we are where we're at today.
As far as I think science has proven evidence for, they've kind of alternated. They've redefined Darwinian evolution to what is evidentially proven, which is a change of kinds.
Mm-hmm.
That science doesn't exactly point to. It doesn't actually at all point to any evidence that there is a species of animal changing into another species. So there's no skeletal sites. There's nothing. There's no fossils that show that like a fish turned into a bird or a bird turned into a fish.
Right.
So what there is small adaptations.
Mm-hmm.
Darwinian finches, the beaks.
Right. So yeah, there's two different types of evolution. There's a microevolution and a macroevolution. And microevolution is something that even creationists and everyone agree upon, which is what you're talking about, the Darwinian finches, and it's things adapting to its environment to survive. And nobody is in disagreement with that. Things adapt, things change when environments change. As people migrated from the Middle East to colder areas, they had to adapt, which is why we have people like myself, with much lighter skin tone, because they weren't out in the sun as much because it's much colder. They're inside, more bundled up, that type of stuff. So throughout time, think that type of stuff changed. That's just a natural thing that everyone agrees upon. It's that macroevolution where it's saying that the macroevolution says that all of these minor changes eventually led to a big change, which led to either a different species or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Which I don't see. Like I say, I don't see any evidence of that at all.
And so the thing is, like, if you do choose to believe that, I think it takes just as much faith to believe in a God as it takes to believe in that type of evolution.
Mm-hmm. Right. And so in the book, he was talking about, so when this first living cell was created, so it was a type of bacteria. So basically, he said that there's almost 3 billion years went by where there was is bacteria and archaea, I believe, and neither of those have a cell nucleus in their being. And then there's a third branch that that sprung out, which I think is Bacchia, or no, I can't remember the name of it. I apologize. But that one had a nucleus to it. So you had two for 3 billion years that didn't have a cell nucleus. And now all of a sudden you have something that has a cell nucleus, which you need a cell nucleus to have the types of advanced life that we have now. Which again, how do you go 3 billion years, even with evolution? Why does it take 3 billion years to get a nucleus? And then far less time to create all of what we see today, a third of that time. Like that just doesn't compute.
No.
And I mean, I'm a very mathematical person, and like he laid out some numbers in the books, and it basically boils down to statistical improbability. He laid out the Big Bang, where he said for the Big Bang to happen by chance, it was statistical improbability. And that's just for the Big Bang itself to happen, not life. And then to have life come from nothing and evolve into, again, is statistical. And he's just going to, for it to happen, the primordial sludge to make one cell. He said with the proteins, there's so many different, there's 150 different pairings, whatever, and there's with those pairings, there's there's a right and a left, and then there's certain ones that that would have to go together compared to other kinds that would mess that up for it not to be a protein.
Mm-hmm.
And for those us to randomly link together, it's like 1 in 10 to the 77th or something like that, which is again statistical improbability.
It's an astronomical number,
right? And that would be just for one protein to form, and it'd be a highly volatile environment that our cells aren't in today. Like the way that that our cells are formed, and they're much more stronger and that type of stuff. Where back then it wouldn't be as strong because again it doesn't have the same type of structure that we do today, and it just mathematically it just doesn't compute. Like I'm a big math guy, and like it just doesn't make sense to me that it's just chance. Like all of this just happens to be chance.
This is very irritating. Going through the education system, and this is being taught as fact, but they don't go through the numbers. They just say this theory is what it is, and they change the definition of theory in class so that it sounds more legit than it actually is. Between creationism and evolution, I don't know if there is another probable outcome. I haven't seen any evidence for a new way that life and Earth were created. I don't like how it has been taught. I feel like if it is a theory, then go through the theories or go through the thoughts.
Right.
And if you do not have enough substantial evidence to prove something, then don't teach it.
Right.
I mean, because I mean, walking down to the store, I meet somebody, and I would say 8 times out of 10, they're going to be like, "Yeah, evolution. That's how it went." And you're like, "Look at the numbers. It's not possible."
Right. And I mean, like I'm okay if you teach something as long as you're teaching both sides of something. So you say this is a theory that's out there. This is another theory that's out there, and you just talk about the major theories that are out there. You don't have to go into the minor things that almost no one believes in. But if you talk, you have to talk about all the major things. You can't just pick one that you can't prove and say, well, this is how it happened, and you just need to accept it. Like, yes, that bothers me. So,
that's the kind of a weird thing, because we're not asking schools to start teaching creationism from a biblical perspective. But if you don't have a good answer, don't give one.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say you have to teach it from a biblical perspective, but at least creation from there's something out there that sprung all of this, that was in charge of making all of this happen. Whether it's intelligent design or
don't start off with
God.
It didn't come from nothing. Like there was nothing there.
Right. I mean,
or did come from nothing.
You just lay them all out. One says that everything came from nothing. One, someone else thinks that there's some type of being out there. Another group calls that Yahweh God. But these are your major theories out there. What you choose to believe. Again, all of them are going to take some faith and some leap, because none of them can be proven or disproven.
None of them have been observed.
Right? Yeah. So, because that you have to lay that type of stuff out there, and yeah, it's just too much for me. I mean, personally, yeah. I mean, I just can't rationalize. The numbers don't add up to say that it all just happened by chance.
And then the opposing argument would be like, well, so is the probability that there's a God. I
So here, and I have this is my example on that. So from an evolution versus creation perspective, it would be like saying that I say I have 1,000-piece puzzle in a box, and I take those pieces and I throw them up in the air, and they all land on the ground perfectly put together. That's what evolution is saying. That through the time it took for them to go up in the air and come down and land, that they just eventually moved towards each other and found the right spot and fell completely in the right spot. Or creationist says there's somebody who took each piece out of the box and specifically put them together. Which one of those sounds more likely that happened?
A livable atmosphere, vegetation. It's
Right.
easily grown.
There are so many things that would have to happen.
DNA. How do you?
And it's so intricately done, and like I heard somebody say, like if it was like a machine, it'd have to be intelligently put together for it to work. Like our DNA is structured and all of that, but for some reason it just naturally happened, even though no other thing has naturally happened like that in all
Yeah.
our human existence. So why is it just that one thing happened randomly, but everything else has to have some type of intelligent creator for it to happen?
So the main difference for me, well, the main thought, like we said earlier, they both take an amount of faith to believe in. Except for us, we know it's faith and we speak about faith from the get-go. That's right. We admit it 100%. You cannot, you have to admit as an evolutionist with faith that that how you think the world came about that way, and you only believe it because of faith,
right?
Which we're not seeing, we're not hearing,
right? Yeah, I agree. Like you'd have to admit that this is what I believe. You can't state it as this is fact. And if that's what you choose to want to believe, that's your choice, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's perfectly fine.
Mind you, it's possible that 0.0 continued for almost an eternity, 1%, that the puzzle piece was thrown into the air and everything fell down and miraculously got to the point where it's at, that we could have a functioning ecosystem with a breathable oxygen and then atmosphere that actually works, a solar system where the sun doesn't burn us to a crisp every single time it goes around us.
Right.
Our planet isn't crashing into others. For all of that to happen, yes, it's possible.
But
it's improbable.
That goes back to the statistical improbability. Yes, is it possible? Sure. But it's so rare of an occurrence that it could happen that mathematicians to say it's not going to ever happen. Because people would say that, like, with, like I say, when going back to those parts of the protein coming together and all that, like there's, say, a 1 in 1,000 chance. Doesn't mean it's going to happen on the 1,000th time on all of them. It may happen on the 8th time on this one and the 20th time on that one. But that's a much smaller number where it's possible, yes, that could happen, to where the numbers that we're talking about with everything being perfect in our universe to even be able to have life, like all the things that would have to happen, where our planet's at in the solar system, where our solar system's at in the galaxy, and where our galaxy's at, and like all these different things that would have to happen. Even in the Big Bang, like if it moved just slightly faster or slightly slower, the universe would have burned itself out or collapsed upon itself. Like everything happened just perfect, and it's just like, again, like it's to me, it just, and I think one way that scientists try to get around this and explain it is when people have brought up the multiverse theory. Because, well, if we have an infinite number of universes in a multiverse, well, then one is bound to,
at some point,
and
it's ours, and
have
we're lucky
it,
to
and
live.
we're the one that, right. And again, like, what, you can't prove one, so now you've gone and come up with a theory that really isn't provable at any chance.
There's another thought that if you have a monkey that lives for eternity, you sit him down with a pen and a piece of paper, the probability of him going through eternity and writing every single novel down is possible. But it would take eternity to do that.
Right.
We don't ever see that happening or
Mhm.
coming through. So I think the question now comes to, since they're both defined by faith,
Mhm.
why is this taught? Why is it taught as nonfiction? Like, why is this historically accurate? And then it's cut because we never talk about it. It's not debated anymore, besides Ken Ham and Bill Nye.
Right.
But like, I rarely get the chance to have this conversation with people. It's evolution or you're an idiot.
Right.
So what is so important about believing in evolution?
I think part of that is the world moving away from God. And part of that is, I think, there's whatever percentage chunk of Christians who've done a poor example of living out their faith, to where people say, if your God's the one who created it, then I want nothing to do with him.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just going to believe he doesn't even exist. And I think that's one thing. And I think there's another part where people have experienced God or don't understand God because they prayed or whatever, and God, they didn't get what they wanted.
Mm-hmm.
And something bad happened. So they've just said, well, God doesn't exist. Because he didn't do this for me, God can't exist.
Yeah.
So then it has to be. Or, the third possibility is you see so many bad things that going around, like hurricanes and
cancer,
disease and pandemics. And if there was a God, then why would he let all of this happen?
Then the argument comes, either God is, he is either all powerful and not good, or he is all good and not all powerful. Which really breaks it down.
Mm-hmm. So I think a combination of those three things, probably a good chunk of why people don't want to believe in a God.
Mm-hmm.
So they have to find a reason to explain how all of this happened.
Yeah. I think the reason why it's not talked about,
mm-hmm.
if you do acknowledge for yourself or for anybody that there is a God, for instance, let's just say the Islamic, Judaic, Christian God,
mm-hmm.
God of Abraham.
Right.
If he exists, going through the New Testament, talking about heaven and hell, mm-hmm. if you acknowledge that there is a God, you acknowledge that there is sin. And if you acknowledge that there is sin, then you acknowledge that there is something in your life that you are either not supposed to be doing or you are supposed to be doing.
Right, because then you bring it into a moral code.
Yes.
That has been laid out, whether defined by whatever faith you choose to believe.
It's the biggest cover-up.
Right. So yeah, it's just a lot of factors on why people don't want to believe.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it just goes back to, I think a lot of people just for whatever reason don't want to believe in a God.
And I can get that. I feel like the majority of Christians have struggled with the thought that there's an all-powerful being who allows evil to exist in the world. I mean, you see a lot of interviews with celebrities or other people that say, why would I want to believe in a God, like you said,
mm-hmm.
who would allow this to happen. Natural disasters. I think it's Luke 13:4. I'll have to look back at it and we can put it in the comments. But Jesus was talking about a tower that had fallen, I think, on 18 individuals. And the people around him were saying, well, they were sinners and that's why God killed them.
Mm-hmm.
They had applied their logic to these people, their deaths,
right,
and said that God must have killed them.
Mm-hmm.
And Jesus was like, that's not what happened at all. Like, why do you think God would want to kill these people?
Right.
Not that that proves anything. It just proves to me that the God that we worship is not intending for us to suffer in the way that we are.
Right. I think it goes back to when we chose to sin, we chose to allow bad things to happen in the world.
That could be a fun discussion.
Right. And well, yeah, we'll probably get to that one day. But I think, yeah, bad things were allowed to happen. The world wasn't perfect anymore as God had intended it to be. Sin had corrupted it. And it doesn't mean that God is making these things happen. He's just not preventing them from happening.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I mean, it's that is a sticking point that a lot of people have, and like, yeah, causes them to have that reason why they don't believe that there is a God, and which leads them to, and I say, when you've made up your mind that there isn't a God for whatever reason that is, but now you have to come up with some type of reason for all of this to exist.
Mm-hmm.
And that leads to some pretty crazy, wild theories. And some of that is, I mean, potentially steeped in some truth, but when that truth is starting to potentially lead you down to there is a God, now you have to twist it as a reason why there isn't a God.
Mm-hmm. I don't want to say that by me saying that this is a reason why people don't believe that we're dispassionate towards this thought, because I mean, I've had this thought.
Mm-hmm.
It's tough, and I think people are still wrestling with it today, pun intended. I don't think it's a bad thing to be thinking about.
No, I don't think so either. I think every person who's a Christian has wrestled with that thought before, because again, it's that, I think the less you know about God, the more you wrestle with that thought, and the more you know Him and know who He is, it helps you better understand it. Because like, for me, like, if I was trying to explain that to somebody who doesn't believe, it would take me a long time. Like, I'd have to lay a lot of background stuff that I know to be true about God to get to the point where I know now, why I don't struggle with that type of thought.
Mm-hmm.
So it's something that as we're walking through and we're knowing God more, we're building upon the things that we've known. And as we know Him more and know Him more and know Him more, then we don't struggle with that fact. It'd be like, there would be things that I can say, like, about you, like, I know you, that I can say with certainty why you would do something that you would do. But if I don't know you, I have no reason why you did that. So, I mean, it's not an equal, because obviously God is infinitesimal, and we can never even come close to thinking on the same level as He does. But trying to wrap our head around it and rationalize it in our own finite mind, like, that's the kind of the best way I can think of saying, I can, people I know really well, I can explain to you why they made certain decisions that they did. But people I don't know, I can't tell you why they made those decisions.
for another huh, another thought, if this is something that people are wrestling with, I think the point at which we lose is when we stop wrestling.
Hmm.
There are so many theological and moral points in the world today that we have that if we stop wrestling with, I feel like we lose the battle. There are things that we always have to be either thinking about or arguing with.
Hmm.
I don't think that that's a bad thing. A lot of people think that wrestling with God is something that you shouldn't be doing.
Right.
I mean, if I get this right, Jacob, who later became Israel, one who wrestles with God and man.
Hmm.
I feel like we're supposed to push back a little bit, figure some things out.
Right.
To the point where, well, not to the point where it destroys your faith. I think there can be some questioning and some thought, yeah, some questions. But if if it turns into hate and discord, I don't think that that's going to help out anywhere with
Right.
anyone.
Hmm. Yeah, I believe that. I always heard someone say that um, it's never wrong to argue with God or to yell at God or anything like that, but know that God's always going to win because he knows better. It's like a child arguing with a parent. The parent obviously knows much better than the child does. Um, doesn't mean that it's wrong for the child to question the parent because the child has to learn, and the only way you're going to learn is to be able to question uh, the parent or to question God, because then it's a teaching moment that God can use it to help show you, why he's doing what he's doing, or why um, this certain thing had to happen or didn't have to happen, or stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, wrestling with that is always important. Um, Another thing is especially when you talk to somebody about a topic like this of evolution or creation, don't ever argue with somebody. Arguing is never going to work. You're never going to argue somebody into believing in God. It's never gonna it's never happened in all of human history, and it's never going to happen. Like I remember um, that I remember talking to somebody, and that person just wasn't willing to have a conversation
Yeah.
about the topic. And at that point, if somebody's not willing to have a conversation, then that's not worth having. If you can't have a conversation and it's going to be just arguing about it, and that person's not going to be open to what you have to say, and conversely, you need to be open to what they're saying as well. Doesn't mean that's going to change your belief or anything like that, but you need to actively be engaged in what they're saying, and have an open mind to hearing what they're saying, to have that discussion.
Yeah.
Because if you don't take that type of attitude, then they're never going to hear what you have to say. And which is why when people start arguing, then people get defensive, walls get put up, and no one hears anything. Which is why it's never good to argue.
What is it? We're not supposed to be winning arguments. We're supposed to be winning lives.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And part of my thought process is back to that. Like, why are people choosing not to believe in God? Why are they going to alternate options? You trying to argue the existence of God, I don't think is the problem. I think well, it shouldn't be arguing at all. It's us expressing Christ through our lives as we live through the world is supposed to bring people to God.
Mm-hmm. If they're not seeing God, Christ through you,
they're seeing somebody argue.
Then they're seeing you. Then there's something going on wrong within you. Something inside you has to change.
It's the thing that I think we talked about the first or second week. How I just lost it. It'll come back to me. Oh yeah, participation in God's work. So, if we are, well, if we want to participate in God's plan, then we have to play by God's rules and God's playbook. But if we take the playbook into our own hands, hence arguing over topics that probably the person we're arguing against doesn't care about,
Right.
God will find somebody to do the job that we were supposed to do. We're participants, not necessary tools.
Right. So yeah. So do we have anybody on Twitch with any comments or questions?
No comments, but there are 2 people watching. I think we are one of them.
I think we are, the way that's set up. So hello, Twitch listener. Glad you're enjoying or listening. Hopefully you're enjoying our conversation today. That's yeah. So I mean, do you have any other closing thoughts before we maybe wrap this up here this week?
Yeah, if whoever's listening, if you disagree with us fervently, you have problems with what we're saying, let us know in the comments.
Yeah.
If you agree with us, let us know in the comments.
Yeah. Do you have any other types of, arguments that maybe we didn't touch on today that maybe explain your side one way or the other? I mean, we'd be glad to address those in a future video and maybe bring this topic back around. It's always one that you can talk about
have over and
times.
Over and over again.
Exactly. So yeah, if we have new information to talk about and kind of walk through, we'd definitely be glad to do that. So yeah, let us know.
Our one listener is enjoying the video, so
that's great. I'm so happy that you're enjoying this video. So yeah, so next week we're going to talk more about creation from a biblical perspective and get into some more of the intricacies of that on a young earth, old earth, literal 7-day creation, non-literal, those types of things. So if you have any points on that you want to bring up, make sure you leave those in the comments for us too, so we can see those and add those to our talking points for next week as well. So before we click off, I want to talk about our social media. And I'll put that up on our screen here. So like I say, you can catch us on Twitch. Hopefully we should be back to a normal schedule starting next week on Tuesdays around 6:30. I'll be in live. You can catch that on Twitch. Look us up on twitch.tv at Wrestling With Our Faith. And then you catch us on our YouTube channel, Wrestling With Our Faith, which we usually post those videos shortly after our live stream ends. You can message us on Instagram at Wrestling With Our Faith, on Twitter at WrestlingR, and if you want to support us on Patreon, we have a Patreon as well. You can look us up at Wrestling With Our Faith on there, and that's just a couple of ways that you can help support our channel. Any type of like, comment, thumbs up, subscribes, and all those things show us that you're enjoying the content that we're putting out. So again, make sure you go to our YouTube channel, subscribe, like, and leave us a comment to be entered in that contest for the Amazon gift card for $50 once we hit 50 subscribers. So we were up to 29 as of today.
Hey.
I know. So which was up like 12, I think, from our last video that we did.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it was, we had quite the bump up in subscribers. So hopefully that continues to move on. We had even in that time when we weren't listening, we had quite a substantial amount of views too on several of our videos. People were rewatching, and or maybe some of our new subscribers were watching all of them, and so I was very encouraged by that. So thank you everyone who's subscribed, who's been listening. Seems like you guys have been enjoying the content so far, and we look forward to continuing to doing that. Yeah. So yeah, hey, big plans this weekend, Josh?
Homework. 2 weeks left of school, so.
Oh. Yeah, but you're looking forward for that to be done with for the semester. Get a nice little break.
Trying. So close.
Yep, I understand. I got some painting of sets for the Christmas play the rest of today and tomorrow. So that is that's what I've been doing the past couple of days as well. They're going pretty well. They've turned out good, and I think it's going to have real good Christmas play this year, so I'm excited about that.
I know that they've really been taking precautions seriously, which is nice. Yeah, it looks so far everything that you guys have been doing, because we come in every once in a while, like on Wednesdays, and we see, and the sets look really nice.
Yeah. So yeah, it's could be good. I know the kids have been working hard, so glad we haven't had any shutdowns in our state to the point where we'd have to cancel that, because I know the kids have worked really hard, and I know that we're definitely taking precautions to make sure people stay safe and expanding seating to other areas of the building and simulcasting that. So if we do have more than normal, we can keep everyone at a safe distance and keep everyone safe. Plus, recording and sharing that on those church social media accounts as well. So, yeah, it's gonna be good. I'm happy for it. Excited for starting to get a little excited for the holiday season. I know last time we talked, that was a little humbuggy.
Yeah,
because it was still early. It was before Thanksgiving.
I think I've seen already like 14 Hallmark movies.
Yeah, no. But speaking of Thanksgiving, my deep fried turkey was absolutely amazing.
I was going to ask about that. Was it?
It was fantastic. Didn't burn anything down, so that was always a plus.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, it was really good. Definitely will be doing that again for sure.
I need to take it easy. I've been drinking. Well, I don't know why. As a 22-year-old adult, I did not know how to make hot chocolate. Found that out.
You were sure you wanted to just admit that too.
Shamefully.
Our tens and tens of listeners.
Actually, shamelessly, I will tell anybody that I was not where I was supposed to be in this world, and success was judged by being able to make hot chocolate. Well, and I was not able to. Now I am. It's getting a little scary because I'm making it either every day or every other day. And
well, I mean, you learn how to do a new thing.
Got to perfect it.
You're excited. You want to continue doing it. It'll eventually wear off. Usually it wears off when you're like 10 or 12, but 22, it's okay. I mean,
I'm a late bloomer. It's fine.
It's all right. Not everyone blooms at the same pace and everything. So, some of us are deep frying turkeys, some are making hot chocolate. So, all right, everyone. We just look forward to seeing everyone again on Tuesday in a few short days for our next discussion. And hope everyone has a wonderful weekend. We will see you all then. Have a great day. See ya.